Hey everybody, what's good? What's going on? JB here. We got a CyberInsight live stream video. We're going to be taking advantage of the fact that it is snowing like crazy outside, at least where I'm at, and do a CCNA Cisco Packet Tracer Practical Lab video covering port security. So I'm just making sure everything here looks good. Let me just see. And then we can go ahead and hop into all the stuff that we have set up here. If you've seen any of the other Practical Lab videos that I've done some Network Plus ones, and I've done one Cisco one. I like to use the Cisco Packet Tracer because it's free, it's pretty easy to configure, and when it comes to the Network Plus and CCNA, most of the stuff that you really need to know is stuff that you can do here without having to buy, different types of equipment and stuff like that. So port security is a interesting type of technology that we have that allows us to do some control over device authentication. So with a normal switch, if we just go and configure interfaces to it, anybody can go and plug in whatever PC or server or whatever into those particular ports. And as long as they have the right IP configuration on the devices that are being plugged in and the VLANs match up and all that jazz, then you have connectivity. Sometimes, though, in certain situations, we want to actually control that a little bit more. So if you're in a user environment where you have a lot of workstations or PCs, you might not necessarily want someone just being able to take their home laptop and come and plug it into your corporate network. You might want to have some other types of controls that are available to you. And one of the easiest ones to implement is port security. And what that does is it will allow us to configure specific MAC addresses that are allowed on particular physical interfaces. So there's a few different flavors of this and a few different ways that we can kind of scale this in some ways. And that's actually, what we're going to dive into and take a look at today. So yeah, let's just hop into it. So just have a regular 3650 switch configured in here. We'll just take a real quick look at what we have as far as a config. Nothing too crazy. We just have two access ports. They're both in VLAN 100. And then we have an interface VLAN on VLAN 100, so 1.2. And then on the two workstations, we'll just go ipconfig space/all. See that this is 1.3. And we can see the MAC address associated with that. And then on this workstation, we'll do the same thing, ipconfig, and we'll see that this is 1.1. So in this scenario, let's say that on the first interface, which is what this PC0 is plugged into, we only want to allow it to be able to connect through the switch. So what we would do is we would configure port security on that interface. We'll config t int gi 0/0/1. I go switch port security. And if we take a look, we see that we have a few different options here as far as some different stuff that we can do. We have some aging commands. The default on this is going to be once port security is tripped, whatever the violation action is done indefinitely until we go and do some type of configuration to undo whatever happened. So we can really either shut the port all the way down or we can restrict unapproved MAC addresses. And we'll get into those specifics here in just a second. So we have aging, we have MAC address. We have a few different options where we can statically assign those or we can learn them dynamically. And then we have some options as far as what we want to do with how many MAC addresses we want allowed over an interface. the default is 1. So if we want to allow more than one MAC address over the physical interface, we're going to have to change that maximum. And then, as I mentioned, with violations, we have a few different ones that we're going to look at in this lab as well. The default violation is shutdown. So if you have the interface configured for a particular MAC address and something else comes in, then it's going to automatically shut the port down and put it in a error disabled state. So for us, we just want to configure switchport port security. I'm going to go like that. And one real quick thing just to show you that the connectivity here is all working. Real quick, let's just go ping 192.168.1.2, which was the gateway. And so we're good from PC1, and we'll do the same thing here. .2, and we're good there. So go back into the switch, and we are going to go, we did the switchport port security command. Now we're going to go switchport port security. We're going to put in the MAC address. And here we have two different options. We can either statically assign this, or we can use the dynamic command, which is going to learn it automatically. First off, let's just go with the static command. So when we were looking back here, the IP config, we can see that the physical address, or the MAC address, ends in 4486. Add that there. Okay, so it does not like that because I believe it found that pre-existing in the MAC table. So let's take a quick look real quick at that. Show MAC address table. Show run. Let us just reboot this guy real quick. So we're gonna go reload, and we're gonna save the config. No, we're not. Let's see how long this takes in Packet Tracer. Hopefully not too long. All right, we're back in. So much quicker than in real life. Okay, let's do that again. Let's go interface GI 1 switch port security, switch port security MAC address, paste. There we go, and do show run. Now we're going to leave the default action for the violation mode to be in a shutdown, and I'll show you where we can see that here in a second. I just want to make sure we have switchport port security and then the MAC address there. So if we want to see what we have configured for port security, pretty straightforward, show port security. Okay, so this shows you the interface that we have it configured on, the maximum secure addresses that are there. So remember, I said the default is 1. Current address that's associated with that, and so that's based off of the static MAC assignment that we did there. And the security action is shutdown. So like I said, shutdown is going to be the default action. So if we were to go and unplug that guy, we're going to replug him into something else, and take PC1 and plug that into port 1. That's going to take a second for these interfaces to go from orange to green. Wait for that to happen. We can actually go back and see all this goodness happening within the switch as far as interfaces going up and down. Almost there. And that one's green, and we'll wait for that one to go green. There we go. Okay. Now, since we have the port security on there, if I come over here and go to do that ping again, the ping that worked last time is not going to work here. So let's go and take a look and see what that looks like actually on the switch. We'll see that that is now red. And we can actually see, show port security, that we do have a violation. So that is increased by 1. And the security action is shut down. So if we do a show interface status, we see that this is now in an error disabled state. Okay, so what if we wanted to do the same thing, but we didn't necessarily want to bring the interface down all the time, right? Because that could have some type of very negative impact on your operations depending upon what types of devices we have connected. In this case, we're just talking about PCs, so maybe it's not that important, but if we were doing this with, let's say, servers in a data center, and we were using some type of port security here, we wouldn't necessarily want to completely take the port down. Especially there runs, or you can run into some situations where you might allow multiple MAC addresses over an interface, especially if you're doing some type of trunking or sub-interfaces, things like that on different types of devices. And yeah, shutdown just might be not so much fun. It might cause you more problems than it's worth. So you might want to do restrict. So let's see what happens when we do restrict mode here. So let's take this. We're going to switch everything back to the way that it was. I'm going to unplug. Let's go to this. Move that to there. And we'll come back around. We're going to put 1 back in there. We'll see that that is still down there. So what we're going to do is a few different things here. We're going to clear the port security there. And we're going to shut the interface. Okay, and so now we're kind of back to a good state here. We can see this and do show port security. And we see, and by clearing that, we kind of reset all of this stuff here. So let's go back. And we're going to re-enter the MAC address that we had on there. GI101. And we're going to go port security. Helps if I go switch port first. Switch port security, MAC address. We'll get that. And we'll put that there. Okay. But we want to go violation, switch port, port security, violation. We were doing shutdown because that is a default. In this case, we're going to go restrict. Now, protect is kind of interesting. I've never actually seen it used in an environment before. Protect is going to do the same thing as restrict. So it's going to block anything that's not approved, continue to let through the stuff that is approved, but it's not going to increment the counter on the show port security command. So like that violation counter that we saw increment as the packets tried to go through, it's not going to increment that. So I don't really know why you would want to use the protect versus the restrict. I'm sure there's a good reason out there somewhere, but yeah, I haven't seen it used. So we're going to go restrict, show port security. Okay, so now we're back here. It's configured statically. We haven't done anything bad with it yet, though. Do show run. And if we look at this, we're in restrict, and we got the MAC address there. Okay, cool. So let's go. We're going to swap these around again like we did last time. And we'll wait for those to come back up. We'll take a second here. And let's see. Almost there. Come on, go green. Well, while we wait, I'm going to have a drink of something. I know Network Chuck has his coffee. I have protein shakes. So, do that. Oh, those are green now. Okay. Let's see that. So, remember before when we did this, it blocked it and it shut the port down. So we will expect this to fail as it did last time here. But when we go and take a look here, we'll see that that violation counter went up a few times. Now, you notice the first time when that happened, it was only one violation and it shut it down. This time, we see multiple violations, and that's because of the fact that it was continuing to monitor the traffic as it was going through and didn't actually shut the interface down. Okay, so then we're going to go show in status, and we see that it's still up and connected. So I could go and swap everything back. Let's go this guy. We could swap everything back. Oh, sorry about that. And once that comes back up, I should be able to ping with the workstation that I had in there initially, which is the one that is allowed. So once that's good and we check that, then I'm going to show you how we can add multiple MAC addresses to there, and how we can also learn things dynamically, which is really a great and easy way to kind of make this a little bit easier to do, so that way you don't need to necessarily go pull MAC addresses from all of your devices. So real quick, as was expected. Okay, so let's say we don't necessarily want to go and pull all the MAC addresses from devices. So in this case, we're going to get rid of this command. Okay. Oh, it does help if I'm under the right interface. Let's see, there we go. All right, so that's cleared, and we're gonna go GI101, switch port, port security, MAC address, and remember before we actually put the whole 48-bit MAC address in here, we're gonna go sticky. What sticky is gonna do is it's gonna pick up the first MAC address that it learns that goes through the interface. Okay. And show port security. And you see we don't have a current address doing that. So real easy, we're gonna go do another ping. Perfect. And we'll see now we have a MAC address learned there. And we'll see from here that it learned that MAC address and then it wrote it into the configuration. So this is great when you do this and you're bringing stuff up. What you do want to make sure though is that you make this persist. So you want to make sure that you save the configuration. So copy, run, start, write mem, whatever it is that you do. Because if you don't do that and you reboot the device, this is a configuration change, and if you didn't save it, it won't be persisted. So Normally, whenever I'm doing this in an operational environment, I have a workstation or a server or whatever that I'm using this on. As soon as I make sure that I'm seeing this command come through, then I'm going to write mem the switch, and that way I know that it's locked in there for good. So that's cool. We got one in there. Let's say that this was a interface that was connected to a switch, and we were expecting both of those workstations' MAC addresses to be coming through this uplink port. So what could we do there? Well, we could modify the maximum allowed. So we're going to leave the sticky here so it's learning stuff. And at the moment it's the default, which means you only learn one MAC address. Anything else that comes in is going to go under the violation mode that we have there, which is restrict. So let's change this to multiple MAC addresses, switch port, port security, maximum, and we're going to change that to 2. Okay. So do show port security. Okay, so now we see that it's configured for 2, but we've only learned 1. So if we go, let's take this, we're going to move this guy, move him around again. And while that adjusts, more protein shake. What we're going to get here is I'm going to ping. It's going to end up going through that port 1 because we have it configured to allow 2 MAC addresses. Then it will do that. Okay. Do that. And you see we get our ping, our successful ping that time. If we go back and take a look at this now, let's go show port security. And now we see that we have 2 MAC addresses. So it's 2 MAC addresses allowed, and it knows 2 MAC addresses. Now, something that will be kind of interesting here is if I go over to this PC0, which is plugged into that other interface, and we go and we do a ping, do you think it's going to work or it won't work? And if it does, why? And if it doesn't, why not? This is going to be something that you're going to want to keep in mind whenever you're doing any of this port security stuff. So it doesn't appear to be working. You have any idea why it doesn't appear to be working? Well, if we go back, and I'm going to give you a hint, go look at this interface again, right? We have these 2 learned over this interface, but I just took one of these and popped it over into this 102, and it didn't work. You look at the MAC address table. Well, that is because of the fact that the MAC address for PC0 has been statically assigned to this interface. So if you have port security turned on, and you either configure it statically or you do it dynamically, and then you save that config and it persists, if you take that device and move it to someplace else on that switch, it's not going to work for you because you already have a static MAC assignment for that to that particular port that was already configured in. So that is something that you do want to take into account whenever you're doing this, and think about that, especially when you're doing moving devices from one port to another and you are using port security. Trying to think what else is kind of good to hit on port security before we wrap up. So this is a really straightforward and easy method to do this. It's not necessarily, the most advanced option that we have as far as device authentication goes. This will protect your environment in very, very simple ways against simple, simple isn't the right word, against folks just going and plugging stuff in that they shouldn't plug in to certain places. But if you actually have somebody who is actually a cyber criminal or as a red teamer or something like that. And this is very easy to get around because really all you have to do is find out the MAC address of the device that is supposed to be connecting. And then you can spoof that MAC address on your device. And it's very easy to configure unique MAC addresses on devices. So if you wanted to take this to the next level and provide a greater level of security, what you'd want to use is something like 802.1x. And that's going to be certificate-based device authentication. That takes a bit more configurations and infrastructure behind that, because you need to be able to have PKI certs on your devices, and you need to have that integrated with some different tools and software that allows that type of authentication to happen. So that's really the way that you want to go with this when it comes to providing, great security for device authentication. But this here, isn't a bad thing to have, and it's probably a best practice to have that implemented, especially if you don't have 802.1x in your environment. So I think that is all I wanted to cover on this. Port security, pretty straightforward. Packet tracer's awesome. If you have any questions or anything like that, hit me up in the comments and we can chat about all that goodness. Hope everybody's doing good. If you hung around this long, hit the like, subscribe, notification button. Appreciate that. Hope everybody has a great week. I got my JNCI DevOps test tomorrow, so looking forward to that. Hopefully do good on that. Yeah, so go get at it, and we will talk soon. All right, bye.